Good morning, everybody. I'm Pam Nelson Harte. I think I know a lot of you guys, and if I don't, thank you so much for coming, and I hope I get to meet you soon today. I want to first thank Trammell and Rajan and Patty and Peter and Jorge and the entire EarthX team and all the volunteers. It's been an amazing week, this conference, and they're to focus on the health of our planet and its inhabitants. Today, we are bringing people together to share the future of Texas conservation, not only so we can be more aware, but also so we can discuss, collaborate, plan, next steps, solutions, working together. To start this morning, I'm very happy to introduce my good friend and colleague, David Yoskowitz. Just a little bit about David. He studied water economics at Texas Tech University. He was a senior executive director at the Harte Research Institute and an endowed chair for socioeconomics, chief economist for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, and now he serves as the executive director of Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So I walked in this morning and I saw the setup, and I was listening to Pam as she was getting ready to kick off the day, and I thought we could have a kind of a change of approach to what we were going to do, and so I asked Pam to stay up here and be part of the conversation as we talk about what partnerships look like. And I feel a little weird actually addressing this because everybody, I look around the room and I know about 95% of you have had a chance to work with 95% of you. And here's David going back to his time as a professor lecturing about partnerships. But I guess what I want to try to do this morning is just say and show, when they're successful and when they're challenged. And so I want Pam to stay up here and we could maybe have a conversation going back and forth. I know we have to stay on schedule. I know the role of an opening act is to set up the headliners, which will follow. But before we get going, I do want to say that your Texas Parks and Wildlife Department is serving 254 counties across the state of Texas, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. I want to thank Pam and the Texas Parks and Wildlife Foundation and EarthX for setting up this session, this conference today to look at kind of new perspectives on conservation in Texas, which really is drawing lessons from around the world and is advancing conservation, and people are learning from around the world. I'm not going to talk about the 15 to 20 million more Texans that'll be here by 2050. The land fragmentation team will talk about that. I'm not going to talk about the new ways in which we can finance conservation. We're going to have a whole panel on that. I'm not going to talk about renewable energy and the impacts on habitat and wildlife. We have great experts that are going to be addressing that. I'm not going to talk about the growing water needs of the state as we add those 15 to 20 million more people to sustain economic growth, but at the same time, make sure that we have those in-stream flows and those freshwater inflows into our bays and estuaries. We got to have a whole panel that's going to talk about that. And then we're going to have a panel that talks about the importance of our coasts. Texas's ocean economy is #1 in the U.S. Ocean economy is #1 in the U.S. But also critically important are the habitats and the wildlife that are in our coastal zone. So we have a great panel on that. What I'm going to want to talk about, just for a few minutes to set up the conversations today, is how we think about partnerships. Do you have the clicker? We come to our jobs, we come to our advocacy, we come to what we desire as, with a value set. right? And that value set is what drives us in a certain way in how we work within our organizations and how we work together. And so I wanted to talk about, for a moment, what partnerships can look like. And this here, I'm calling it paths to conservation. These paths to conservation, this is really taken from the Thomas Kilman model. It's actually a conflict model that was developed back in the early 70s, along when you had Myers-Briggs and DISC and all those really popular at that point. I looked at this and I said, well, this looks familiar in terms of how we approach conservation a lot of times in those partnerships in conservation. And so I'm having to lean forward to look here, but these kind of 4 quadrants that are in front of you, thinking about competing efforts and avoiding efforts and accommodating efforts and then collaborating efforts, and the impact that, whether you're assertive as an individual and as an organization, or you're cooperative as an individual and an organization, really drives what you're willing to do. I think, looking around this room, that avoiding quadrant in this graphic, there's nobody here that's avoiding taking on the tough conservation challenges. I think in this room we have individuals that are highly assertive, right, and also highly collaborative. But there are times, and I find this, as I've worked in various organizations over time, and then having come to the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, that you are going to find yourselves in situations where there are competing interests, right? I mean, for example, to get conservation done, a large part, you're going to have money. You're going to have resources. Well, there's a lot of people that might be competing for the same pots of money. So that is a very real possibility. Accommodating. There may be times where you want to step in, your organization wants to step in, but somebody else has taken the lead, and maybe it's best for the relationship that has developed between organizations for you to step back. That's tough to do. That is, especially if you're, highly cooperative, you want to be involved. But sometimes it may be just beneficial to get the conservation action job done to step back. What I want to focus on really is the collaboration quadrant. Conservation collaboration came out in the late 80s, early 90s, really started to pick up. And when we talk about conservation collaboration for the department, it really started out with collaborating with our landowners, right? I mean, 95%, we'll get the latest number here in a little bit, 92, whatever it might be, of the state in privately held hands, you're not going to get meaningful conservation action done unless you're able to partner. And so the collaboration with landowners was critically important. But the collaboration with others also to get work done on water, right, and species of, special concern to the department was critically important. So I wanted to share with you this morning an example of collaboration that took off about the same time that the conservation collaboration movement took place. And it's actually very apropos for where we are. It has to do with the Trinity River. And the Richland Creek Wildlife Management Area, which is, as the crow flies, probably about 70 miles from here, but downriver, down the Trinity, it's a lot longer. That effort around building wetlands that would have an impact not only on water resources but on wildlife was critically important decision that was made back in the early 80s. In the early 80s, before the beginning, right, in the early 80s, Ducks Unlimited, Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, and Tarrant Regional Water District, Tarrant County Water Management District got together and said, can we do something better that hasn't been thought about before? can we, instead of taking water out of the Trinity River and building a big plant to clean it up and pump it into Richland Chambers Reservoir, can we do something that's a win-win-win? And that win-win-win was to collaborate, build, now close to 600 acres of wetlands at that wildlife management area, to have nature clean up the water, remove 80 to 90% of the sediment, remove 50 to 60% of the nitrogen and phosphorus load, and then pump that into Richland Chambers Reservoir. That was, the cost of that effort was a third of what it would have cost to build something, engineer something, and clean that water up mechanically. That collaboration has continued on, and just last week we dedicated another 200 acres into that wetlands effort, and in addition, we dedicated 111 acres of wetlands and engineering that doesn't take water out of the Trinity to clean up to put in Richland Chambers Reservoir. It takes water out of the Trinity, cleans it up, and puts it back into the Trinity for downstream uses. So that was done through a collaboration that has brought in new partners, including the Texas Water Action Collaborative. Thank you, Texan by Nature, for bringing those partners to the table as well. And very, I'm looking at Zach, very, very soon, we will be adding another wildlife management area just downriver from Richland Creek that will start doing the same thing as well. So the goal of, and that will take collaboration to get that done. So the goal of the department is in the Trinity River Basin to get collaborations on the ground to help that watershed and help move clean water downriver so it's useful for wildlife, in-stream flows, but also a growing Texas population. So we just have a minute or so, Pam, and I just wanted to, in closing and setting up the rest of the day here with everybody, is when I think about collaboration and working with all of you, I think about that, even the small challenges today are very large, right? The small challenges today take a lot of effort, and they can't be done alone. The small challenges and the big challenges need partnerships. Those that are long-lasting, impactful, meaningful, need partnerships. And that collaboration effort starts with the ecosystem that has been created here in this room today. Thank you, Pam, for bringing that together. Building that trust, having those conversations, agreeing to disagree, right? That's critically important. I mean, I can wax on about other issues that we've been, dealing with in the department where we have collaboration that breaks down because there's a lack of communication or there's a lack of trust. But we need to keep trying, because actually that's what's going to be beneficial in the long run. That's what's going to be meaningful in the long run and long lasting. So I'll end there. I see we're down to just a few seconds. I'm looking forward to the rest of the day, engaging in all these great conversations. And Pam, do you have anything you want to? No? Okay. Thank you. Thank you all. And I kept us on schedule.